Okay, I'm going to do the introduction then, because that's apparently how professionals do it.
Oh, there's my camera there. See, there's my camera.
Hey!
Nice. This is an interview series like no other, literally.
You are kind of like the Graham Norton chat show of the internet.
Wow. I'll take that.
We're going to officially start now. It's called Actors Talk About Themselves, and because I'm an actor, Jed's an actor. And special guest, Jed Brophy.
Yes, hello.
The Hobbit is my very first guest. So I thought, well, why don't you stay in my own room and not wear pants? I may or may not be wearing pants. And
I'm not wearing pants. I'm not wearing pants.
Nah. Well, that was the rule. I emailed Graham McTavish as well and Adam Brown, and they both said absolutely, definitely no pants. So Graham actually said naked.
I liked your opening, actors. What's it? Getting actors talking.
Actors talk about themselves, because we love to talk about ourselves.
I mean, that would be incredibly difficult. Don't you think? I mean, actors talking about themselves. What a novelty idea. Gosh, anyway.
I know.
I shall try and overcome my shyness and talk about myself.
We've had a few of these so far, and, you know, they've always been... I like to keep them casual and raw and real, like real conversations, but at the same time, try to keep them, above board and appropriate. And I feel we're going to completely bash that.
That's not going to happen.
That's not going to happen today at all.
No, it's a shame that you set yourself such high standards, because really, it's destined to fail.
Hey, everyone's going, hey, you should go to LA, you should check LA out. So I did, and I went and stayed with Graham McTavish at his place. It was sort of close to Santa Monica. I remember because there was a swimming pool they used to go to, and I mean, he said I blocked his toilet, but I really don't think. I think that was the toilet. Anyway,
you'll probably find me upside down, will you? I am, aren't I? No idea how this has happened.
This could be quite possibly the first upside down interview I've ever done.
Well, we are in the southern hemisphere, aren't we? After all,
mate. So welcome to my garden. Sorry we couldn't. I was going to actually get you. Part of the reason to interview today was actually to get someone to help me put the table back up the back, but we didn't quite get to that because my extension cord. Otherwise,
Honestly.
I would have got you to move furniture.
Yeah, that's cute because I would have done that.
Yeah. Okay. I'm just going to turn off second cam because my arm's getting tired. Is it on? Is it off?
It's still on. This is why
what's
actors.
the point? What's the point of having a button if you can't? If you got a slick, totally slick.
So Bilbo and Gandalf are like basically the Mayfair and Park Lane, but the Master of Lake Town and Azog the Defiler's got a star on his face. I'm like in here. I'm like Fleet Street with Thorin Oakenshield and Beorn.
I'm not on it.
I think you are. Oh no, you're here. You're in those dodgy purple ones. But the one that made me laugh is Dwarlin is Old Ken Road.
Hashtag Old Kent Dwarlin.
Old Kent Graham. The first time we met, it would have been. It would have been at one of the get-togethers. I remember talking to John.
Well, it would have been the first get-together. It would have been January the 15th, 2011.
Yeah.
I have a very strange memory for dates like that. Dates that are so traumatic that I'll never forget them. So, January the 15th, because I've had to tell my therapist that so often. When did you first meet Stephen Hunter? Yeah, the man who's ruined your life.
Well, that was the first time.
Yeah, that was the first time, and probably one of the few times that I saw you out of makeup as well.
Right.
Because I think we all worked out that during the run of the filming,
you worked out because you're a train spotter. Yeah.
We saw each other in makeup more than we saw each other out of makeup.
Yeah. How many times were you in makeup?
Oh, I think I worked it out. It was something over 200 days, 220, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I was, Richard was slightly more, and then I think it was Jed was actually way up there in terms of days in makeup.
But Jed loves it so much. I mean, I called him the other day and he was still in makeup. So
applying it himself.
Well, he's purposely, he goes for jobs. How can I put myself through more pain? And that's why he did Shannara. I'll put myself in even more makeup, because obviously the dwarf makeup wasn't enough for him. I remember I met you in 1987 or 1988, and you were doing a show called Ladies' Night. And I don't know how old you were then. I was quite young. I was probably about 18 or 19.
I was a year out of drama school.
Right.
So I would have been 23.
Was that your first big gig? Was that, or were you doing amateur stuff?
My first big touring gig. It was my first big gig. I'd done the show. Michael Hurster directed it at Centrepoint, and then the tour sort of came out of people seeing that production, really. And we toured for 7.5 months. And yes, I do remember coming to Hamilton. I remember meeting you, and we went to some jazz club.
Oh, very possibly. I think we had a jam in the creative room.
That's right. We had
the radio stations.
There's a set of drums there, and a few people got on the guitars. It was pretty horrible.
I had a bass guitar, and I had a horrible old vocal amp that you'd have at an indoor event of some sort. It was just terrible. Plus, my bass playing was pretty average, I imagine.
So much was too. It was just basically white noise. But we had a good time.
We did have a good time, because I did radio for many, many years, and I always remember that. And then when the Hobbit jobs came out, I go, I remember Jed. Jed. I met him when I worked for Kiwi FM in Hamilton.
You know, the terrible thing is, somewhere there is out there. There's a copy of a video of me stripping for telethon, and you see everything because they didn't put the lights down. I used to do this thing where I put the cricket cap on and then like that, and then I'd throw the cricket cap up as the lights came down, but I didn't put the lights
If you'd like a link of that video, you could email me at info@stephen-hunter.com.
When you're an unemployed actor living in LA, and back then the passes were so much cheaper, and so I think that year I went like 40 times to Disneyland, because why not? What else do? You don't have an audition, you don't really have anything else going on, might as well go to Disneyland.
Exactly. And why were you dressed in that outfit?
So I had an audition that morning, and my buddy Chris, who was down from Portland, we drove out to the audition. It was for Cougar Town.
Nice.
And
I couldn't remember it was Cougar Town.
Did not get the part. I did not get the part, but I did get to. We went to Disneyland afterwards, and I was dressed still in my referee outfit. It was like for some kickball game or something like that, and I was the referee. But anyway, I saw this guy with a Van Halen t-shirt on, and I was like, I gotta talk to this guy. And then he opens his mouth, and he's got an Australian accent, and I'm like, wait a second. I really gotta talk to this guy. And then I saw you were by yourself, and Chris and I go all the time. We've got a stack of fast passes, and this is before you could like kind of mix your old fast passes with the new ones. And I was like, you're coming with us. You only got one day here. We're taking care of you. And we kidnapped you. Exactly.
And you did, man. That was one of. I've been wanting to go to Disneyland since I was 8 years old, and that was one of the best days of my life. 12 hours, and you bozos just like taking me around and goes, okay. So it was like going on camp. You've got we got this, we've got that, and you guys have been camp counselors, haven't you? So like, okay, we're doing this, we're doing this. We're going here first, and then we'll get a ticket to that, and then we'll line up to there, and it was just unbelievable. You've been acting for how long now, John?
Well, I started when I was 5. I'll be 70 in a couple of months.
Wow,
and
70?
Yes, believe me. Yeah, I've got a child who is 50. My son, who is 48, is staying here at the moment. Yes, I'm quite old, really, for a person of my age. In fact, I don't really feel that I'm that old. I still feel fairly juvenile, and I think a number of people who were on The Hobbit could probably confirm that.
Oh, absolutely. It was incredibly juvenile most of the time.
It was, yes. And one or two people, not mentioning any names at all, Mr. Hunter, contributed greatly to that, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. Yes, I think our first responsibility is to be irresponsible.
Yes, someone asked me that. I did an interview just recently, an email one for the One Ring, and I was saying about behaviour, and was there any embarrassing moments? And I was like, well, being dressed up and all that kit, and the way we were behaving, I think we lost all sense of embarrassment like very early on. So
oh yeah. Look, I work with a lot of young actors and trainee actors, actors in drama schools, that kind of thing. And one of the things I tell them first on is just forget any sense of dignity, because you'll be doing all sorts of crazy things, and probably not all of them on screen. So, yeah, just get over yourselves and let's get on with it. That's basically it.
I got a phone call from my agent because I was in a double act, a comedy double act, and I had been for 10 years. We'd done Edinburgh Festival, we'd done... we toured New Zealand, we toured around the world.
Blessed and Brown.
Kind of what I was. Blessed and Brown, yeah, where I was a double act. And that's kind of where I thought my life was going, really. And then I got a phone call saying, I've got an audition for The Hobbit for you. To which point I was like, okay, which venues is it going to? I'm not really sure if I've got time to fit it in our schedule. And they're like, no, it's The Hobbit. Can you go along? And this was when Martin was tied up with Sherlock, and the BBC were being really funny about releasing him. So I went for bloody Bilbo Baggins. I think every kind of actor under 5'7" in London was auditioning for Bilbo, because they were like, fuck, we haven't got Martin, so let's try and find the next best Martin Freeman. So yeah, and I went along, and it was my first movie audition, and I had a good time. I enjoyed it, and then I left and didn't think anything more. And then I got a phone call from my agent saying, they've been on the phone, they really like you, but you're not right for Bilbo. They're going to keep you in mind for a dwarf. So I was like, okay, very nice. Had no idea what that meant. I was like, does that mean like third villager from the left? I don't know what that means.
Fourth.
And then I think 8 weeks later I got a phone call saying that was it. Can you pack up your bags and fly to New Zealand in 2 months to start shooting?
Wow.
And I was like, what the hell?
You have to go back 12, 14, 15 years. The beginning of the other one. What do you call it?
The Lord of the Rings.
3 small films about wee people. Yes, I was up for Bilbo Baggins.
Yeah.
All those years ago. I did a screen test for Bilbo Baggins. And, as you know, they screen test quite a lot of people, actors. And then over a year, I think, or 6 months, they whittled away. And eventually, and every now and again, they keep phoning up my agent and said, no, he's still in the picture. I mean, not literally, but you know what I mean. And so they whittled away until they got down to two actors. I was one of them. And the other was, I didn't know who the other was until they announced that Ian Holm was going to be Bilbo Baggins. I mean, I was disappointed. But at the same time, I was rather delighted to be in his company. Do you know what I mean? He's a great actor.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I nearly got Bilbo Baggins. But I'll tell you what, my hair got into it. That was my hair that Bilbo Baggins had in that film.
Really?
I went along to see it. Yeah, because my hair used to be darker and messy and wild, kind of just, it had a mind of its own. And I was watching this film thinking, wait a minute, that's my hair. I didn't get into it, but my hair did. They must have given him a wig just like my hair.
I was going to say that I'm glad you clarified that, because you didn't sort of wake up one day without a scalp or anything like that. It was actually, they just designed it from your hair.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm sure it was an accident, but it was exactly the same as mine.
I hope you got a hair credit at least.
I should do. Well, I did get a lot of hair. They gave me hair in abundance when I eventually did get a part in the Middle Earth.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And of course, you were the one of the only one who got to have poo as well in your hair.
Oh yes. Well, I don't know. Peter Jackson said to me, he said, I'm going to cover you in this bird poo. And I said, oh, right, okay. He said, I've always wanted to cover an actor in shit.
I remember the first thing I read, you did an interview with the One Ring or something like that, and it was in such detail, and you had so much information on your characters, and you did so much physical training, and I just looked at it and going, oh my! I was probably sitting at my computer eating a pie or something.
You were almost certainly eating a pie.
Yeah. Just looking at the cover of the book that I probably hadn't read and just going
Pie Monthly.
Yeah, Pie Monthly.
Yeah.
But
no, so I did do a lot of preparation. Yeah.
Did you do that? I mean, as soon as you got it, or did you start doing all that prep even before you got that role?
No, well, I mean, I'd been training. I'd been training for years, one way or another. But as soon as I got, quite literally, I got the call on September the 6th, 2010. And the first person I rang was my wife, Gwen. And the second person I rang was a friend of mine who was a personal trainer. And I immediately went and started seeing him basically 5 days a week for 3 months, because I knew it was going to be absolutely horrendous, how tiring it was going to be. And I just wanted to be able to do my own stuff in it and not get completely knackered. Unfortunately, when I arrived, we still had about another 2.5, 3 months of training when we got there.
Well, it was extended, wasn't it? It was.
Yeah, which was fortunate for many reasons.
Look, had I known what we were letting ourselves in for, I probably would have been going to the gym a bit more before we started, because I did go to the gym on and off, but I'm not really a gym bunny. So when we got there and we started the boot camp, there was one day where I was going around and I saw dear old Ken going around that huge room. It was the size of 2 or 3 basketball courts, wasn't it?
Yes, yeah.
And
the cultural centre, the Chinese cultural centre.
Yes, and blow me down, poor old Ken had to pull out after one circuit, and I thought, well, I'm bloody well not pulling out yet. And by the time I got halfway around the second one, I regretted it. I went off to the loo, and when I came out of the toilet, bugger me, you guys were carrying one another up and down the bloody hall. And I thought, no, John, no, don't be doing that. Don't be doing that. So I went back into the toilet.
Yeah, I think that was the day I popped my calf muscle.
Yes,
Carrying
it
Jed
was.
Brophy.
One of the greatest things about doing this job is the friendships that we forged. It's a core bunch of people that doesn't matter where in the world and how long it is in between. If we see each other again, we have that kind of shared memory of what it was we went through. It was a bit like going to war. I talked to...
except the catering was better.
Except the catering was much better. No one
got killed.
No one got killed. Well...
It was nothing like war at all, folks. It was really very nice.
But in terms of the camaraderie, that's the single most positive thing I can take away from the experience, apart from all the junkets and getting all the air miles, which was amazing. Don't get me wrong.
I'm still living on my Qantas gold membership, so and my Air New Zealand was gold for a long time, so yes, thanks guys.
It's great, yeah. And just kind of being able to do something amazing for this country as well, in terms of what the Hop's done for tourism, it's been incredible. And it's always nice to feel like you've done more than just make a film. It's actually something that lends itself to something else. Not just the amazing fan base that we have, but also just what it's done for the fabric of this country, which is so much about primary industry. The film industry is now the 3rd biggest kind of earner in this country, which is an amazing thing. And not all of it's just pure entertainment. There's amazing films have come out, around about the same time as the Hobbit, and we've seen a lot of our contemporaries kind of go like that as well. Great thing about this country is this country will make you keep your feet on the ground.
I've told the story a couple of times about when we were in Bag End, and we were having a food fight, and you had a cunning idea to feed me tomatoes, but it didn't quite work out like that, did it, Graham?
No. We were doing an extended shot of food being passed around the room and plates and all the rest of it, and I was standing behind you, and I thought it would be really great if I fed you tomatoes while you were moving the plates and all the rest of it, and I got this cherry tomato. Fortunately, it was a cherry tomato.
And not a nectarine.
Rather than a beefsteak tomato, that would have been pretty painful actually. And I accidentally started ramming it up your nose, thinking it was your mouth, which that says something about the size of your mouth or the size of your nostril. I don't know which one. But I was convinced that I was inserting this tomato in your mouth, and to your great credit, not for a moment did you turn around and say, what the hell do you think you're doing? You're ramming a tomato up my nose. You just carried on.
Well, it was Dwarven after all.
Yeah, I was pushing. I got my thumb in there. I was ramming away. I mean, it could have been lodged in there. You could still have it in there.
I was watching that interview the other day. For those who haven't seen it, I think I've got it on my playlist on my YouTube channel. But they asked us all these questions in London. That was at Claridge's in London, and it was like, what was the name of? Was it whose sword? Gandalf's sword.
Sword.
Yeah. What was the name of Gandalf's sword? And you said
Gladriel.
It was brilliant. It was
always going to trick you up, because when you had Jed on set, like, you could ask him anything about Middle Earth and he'd be like, bang, 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 bang. So, I just turned to Jed, but when he wasn't there, you were like, rabbit caught in the headlights going, oh shit, I hope I'm saying this right.
Yeah.
That was a pretty massive one to make a mistake on.
I almost got killed by Orlando Bloom lovers because you had moved from one side to the other and I was in my security detail following you.
Yeah.
And then Orlando was coming right behind me and they're like, Orlando! I thought I was going to die.
Oh, man, I don't know if you remember, but my car didn't pick me up. They had to call to get my car.
That's right.
And I was late. So, of course, I arrived in between, Evangeline Lilly and Andy Serkis. And there's nothing more. There's nothing that brings you back to earth more than being on a lineup and you're sort of doing the things. And I talked to some radio station in China, which was great. They were very, very enthusiastic, and I saw some fans. But when you've got your minder with your card with your name on it, going past all the media, and all you see them do is just go.
Right.
One day, Ken Campbell came in. This mad, wonderful genius came in and said to Brian, listen, I've got this mad show and, someone's let me down. Do you know any young actors? Any kind of crazy actors? And Brian said, ask the guy in the box office. He's out of his head. And so Ken came up and said, yeah, do you want to join my show? And I went, yeah. And that's how I became an actor. And a poet, a great poet playwright, Adrian Mitchell, had written a musical play for me at the National Theatre. And I was playing the Pied Piper. And the producer of Doctor Who came along and saw it. I learned this later. He went back to his office and said, I found my new doctor. Mm-hmm. But I had to go through all sorts of loops, screen tests and interviews and things to get the role. But I was very ignorant of it. I didn't know, what had happened to Colin Baker, and I didn't know the past history very much. I got the job on a Monday, and on the Thursday I was flown to Atlanta, Georgia, to a convention. I had no idea what they were. And it kind of blew my mind. And that was it. There was no time to do any homework. And suddenly they just gave me the script. And I tried to learn the lines and bump into the monsters, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
We used to have parties in my flat at university just to keep the flat warm because it was so cold. I'm really not joking. We'd dance around in the lounge to warm it up.
Wow.
It was... Well, this was a place where you would leave a pint of milk on the fridge, outside of the fridge, and it would be frozen solid the next morning.
Right.
Yeah. I used to sleep in all my clothes. Yes.
Well, it saves having a wardrobe, really, isn't it?
It's true. You don't need a wardrobe when you sleep in your own clothes.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I did a lot of acting at university. I did a lot of Shakespeare, Jacobean drama, and in retrospect, I was lucky that I went to a college, Queen Mary College, that had such an amazing professor of English who encouraged people to perform in plays, and so I did, and actually I ended up probably doing more acting at university than I would have at drama school.
Yeah.
And so I didn't go to drama school.
No.
I left and I just did a one-man play, a Beckett play called Crap's Last Tape, and toured that around pubs in East London, to audiences often of one. I remember sitting in what laughably passed as the dressing room, which was essentially the toilet. And
Luxury.
You would listen for the footsteps coming up the stairs
and that's how you'd be able to count the audience. Yeah, and there were not many footsteps.
Yeah.
No.
You know, and we found that with our study, like not only we learn about acting, but you learn more about yourself and about how to really accept yourself, which is it. Because you're right. I mean, you can't do anything about other people. You can't change. Quite often, you can't change your circumstances. You certainly can't change other people. The only thing you can alter is, I guess, your experience of them. You know, and if you can do that, then you've got power over it. You know.
Yeah, I think that's one thing I really loved about Meisner is like because it is about telling a deeper truth and not lying as a character.
Yeah.
You have to get in touch with those parts of yourself that you're scared of. You know, like you have to get in touch with that. Even in the first year when you first start studying in that school, you know, you're doing these improvised activities where you have to bring in something physically difficult, almost impossible to do. So you've got to really tap into sides of yourself that you wouldn't normally do, like the sexy side, the angry side, those really deep emotional parts of yourself that you wouldn't normally show.
Hi, Sophia. Yeah.
That's how you know we're actually in Australia.
Yeah, it's awesome. That's cool. And other thing too is, no, that's the white cockatoos. Just don't leave bread out. They'll never leave. You've eaten your toast. How's your peanut butter?
Oh my God. You know you're in a good place when your friend like asks you over to do a little podcast interview and they're like, do you want a piece of peanut butter toast? And you're like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Best ever.
I think there's a misconception. This is something that I'm really glad I've gone through now, that, you know, the glamour of our industry. And it can be glamorous. I mean, there's no doubting that first tour that we did where we went to, that wonderful 600-metre red carpet in Wellington, and that was, to me, the best premiere. It was just so special. And then New York, which was just mad.
Yeah.
And then London, meeting the Prince and all the hoo-ha.
Yeah, just staying at Claridge's, which, you know, I walk past there occasionally now when I'm in London going, we stayed there.
Yeah, you're wearing a T-shirt. Wasn't it meant to be collar and tie for lunch?
Yeah.
There's all the Kiwis lining up for the you know, and it's like, there is that side of things, but I think the thing that I learned is that that's not the core of the industry. That's an added little bonus, a little cherry on top that sometimes, if you're lucky, you get. But the core of it is creating and is like expressing yourself. And a very good friend of mine, a guy called Jeff Bollow, he's got this amazing screenwriting program called Fast Screenplay. And he did a TED talk and he said, look, when it comes to creativity, because I always thought, my idea's been done. He said, look, you are original. Nobody has experienced what you've experienced the way you've experienced. Your ideas are purely original because it's your experiences. We all get lulls in this industry, and like even like now, the last couple of weeks, you know, I did a job and haven't had many auditions or voice works, voice jobs the last week or so, and you know, things come and go. You know, how do you deal with that?
Look, I think what you have to have is faith in yourself, and some people can misinterpret that as being arrogance. In fact, at the beginning of this year, 2016, round Christmas, New Year, early January, I was thinking, goodness me, I've got bugger all work. Maybe the fact that I'm 70 years old and is of some concern in terms of getting work, because obviously, you know, it's a young person's medium, all that kind of thing. And then my brother, the same one, said to me, John, you have been in this position for the last 45 years. And he's right, you know. Since then, I've had, you know, starting back in February and including a trip to Bonn to the wonderful HobbitCon 4, there's been one thing after another. And really, I just haven't stopped this year so far. At the moment, for instance, I'm working as executive producer on a little film job. And that involves really pissing off the producer by saying, well, you can't do that because the money isn't there unless you can find any more, you know, that kind of thing. So how do we cope with those downtimes? I think we do have to have faith that we've have got something to offer, and that after all these years we actually do know a bit of something about what we're doing. I fully accept that younger people are probably more in tune with the technology than me. The fact that we're doing this on my phone is an indication that I just can't get the Skype thing to work properly without my image being upside down.
He just used to torture Mark Hadlow by doing extraordinary things, like wearing red shoes to the Royal Premier, for example. I talked to him about that recently. And
that set Mark into an apoplexy, didn't it? Yes. Do you remember we imagined that Mark would be so overwhelmed to meet Prince William?
Yeah.
Because Martin and I decided that just before he would just before Prince William would get to him, Mark would just self-immolate, because as a sort of gesture of loyalty and honouring the prince, he would just do that in front of him, but he would mistime it. He would mistime it, and the prince would miss it, and then there would just be this pile of ash where Mark was once standing, and that moment had been lost. And that guy's got such a good sense of humour, because we were relentless. I mean, that royal premiere, he was almost on the point of exploding.
Well, he was, especially with John and his red tie and his red shoes. He couldn't believe it.
He just thought it was an affront.
I gave a talk at my school, and somebody asked this.
Yeah.
And I said in front of the kids, but also like the mayor of the town, all of like the PTA staff, like, and all the local press, saying, "What are your pearls of advice?" And I said, "It's just simple. Don't fuck up." To which point, all the kids whooped and thought it was the best thing they've ever heard in terms of. And then I felt like an idiot, because I was like the guy at school that swears and thinks he's really cool. Like, hey, I'm down with the kids, and it was like, oh, awful. And I had to apologise to the mayor and say, oh my God, I'm so sorry. What have I done? It's quite notorious in my town, so I'm not really sure I should give any words of advice.
That should definitely go into your show.
Well, apparently, like the year after, they had Bear Grylls doing it, because he's from my town as well.
Right.
And apparently he wasn't very interesting, and they preferred swearing. I'm
going to play a little video.
I can't see it very clearly, but I can hear a rat-tat-tat of spoons. It seems that someone's playing the spoon, and being somewhat of a detective, I might guess it's me.
That video I just played, that was you playing the spoons at a venue called Mighty Mighty in Wellington with a band called Claude Rains. A few of us did a music video with them, and we went to see them play one night, and thankfully, after probably a little bit of encouragement, but perhaps not as much encouragement as we suspect, you were on stage playing the spoons pretty much on the lead singer. It was remarkable. And that was one of your things. I mean, everywhere we went, if it was on location or in the catering tent or anywhere or at a party or something, the spoons would always come out. When did you start to be such a master of the spoon instruments?
Well, I could say prison, because that's a really good place to learn.
I think any story should always contain the words blah 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 in prison. I just think it adds a whole new flavour to it.
Yes, well, it was done quite well in Australia for some reason.
Yeah. What were those breakfast pancakes? I just had to look at them and I immediately had to go to the bathroom.
Yeah, I think the whole of that part of Santa Monica is still in lockdown. They're just trying to find the source of the problem.
Yeah, nah, sweet.